at least it's morning here where I am. I can't believe it's been, I think, about 2 or 3 years now since I've posted something on this channel. And recently I've been kind of inspired to kind of reboot or come back a little bit more to this platform to interact more with trans and non-binary and two-spirit community members and share information. And I just think YouTube is a really good platform, or any other kind of platform where there's sharing of stories and experiences and realities and insights. So yeah, I'm kind of going to be posting more regular content here to this channel. It'll be a little bit more personal in nature, but also fold in a little bit more about what I'm doing, especially for work, because it relates directly to this channel. And anything else, like in terms of adventures that I go on and so forth. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. But first I wanted to give a bit of an update since it's been so long since I posted last. And particularly, I don't even know where to begin. In fact, it took me a while to get to this point. I find the longer that I wait, the more that I feel like there's this, there's a lot to kind of share and put together, and thoughts and sound bites. And so, but you know what, you just dive in and kind of figure it out. So in the last few years, I've been doing really, really well. Of course, now that physical transition is kind of faded into the background and I feel fairly comfortable with who I am, and you know, where my body is at. You know, for the most part, there's kind of still some remaining items in my mind, but you know what, I mean, I can manage those fairly well. So once that kind of faded in the background, and I think I alluded to it in my last video from 2 or 3 years ago, is I became more and more interested in the social aspects that trans, non-binary, and two-spirit people are facing. And that's when I started to volunteer for improving things, thinking through what solutions might look like. And I became very interested. And of course, I'm a social scientist, so you know, I am used to putting together large programs and consultation processes and, you know, analyze data to come up with solutions for complex social problems or issues. And so I'd already been kind of doing that as part of my previous job. And for some of you, you might know that it was within the mining industry, looking at social impacts. And now I'm starting to apply that with, or not now, it's been over the last 5 or so years that I've been actually applying it to issues of gender diversity. And that's presented itself with a whole set of new puzzles to solve. And so it's been really, really interesting. And in fact, I've started my own consulting agency to help companies through that. Those issues, those challenges, to work alongside trans, non-binary, and two-spirit folks to better understand what the issues specifically are, and then, you know, applying creativity and innovation to solve those issues. And some of them we've already had a lot of discussion and collaboration around, and certainly people who came before us had a very clear vision of what they wanted and needed, and that's of course brought us to this current moment. And of course I'm very thankful for folks who fought so long and endured a lot of pain for us to be in this specific moment. So of course my hearts go out, and a lot of gratitude for that. And then it's also thinking through what the next steps and years entail, and to be kind of at the forefront along with so many others who are working on this issue. And certainly it's gotten a lot more attention, consideration. You know, so here in Canada, the laws have changed since I last posted, and this all very encouraging momentum towards a greater, more expansive and inclusive reality and society. And so I felt very excited to start this consulting practice. And so day in, day out, I get to work on these issues, and I hope to share a bit of that. Of course, not in detail because of confidentiality, but in broad strokes to allow you to see how quickly things are changing, or maybe even how powerfully things are changing. There's a lot of hope. I guess I have a lot of hope when I work on these issues, and I get to be a part of the solutions along with so many others, right? And so part of the reason why I want to re-engage is to share that, that there's a lot of excitement, there's a lot of really interesting things to noodle on. It's not as straightforward as, you know, the solutions are the antithesis of the problem, if you will. It's not quite that easy. Sometimes it's actually completely unpacking something and then reassembling it in a different way, in a way that helps trans, non-binary, and two-spirit folks, but then also can also help cisgender people. And I love to tell that story as well, that it's not just for us, but it's also for a whole variety of other folks as well. And we see that time and time again, obviously, in other communities that are marginalized. Say, for example, people with disability. If you redesign a washroom with consideration for their needs, you actually make things better for a whole host of other folks, right? And potentially everyone, right? So it's not a new theme that if you go specific, you sometimes come out universal, but I certainly really enjoy the detail of working on when and how that happens. And so I'll share kind of in a broad way what that looks like as well. And then, of course, I've been on my own personal adventures. Of course, I'm not just doing work. I like to balance my life in terms of the various interests that I'm in. And, you know, from me personally, I've been on a journey of sobriety. And now this year is my 10th year of being sober, which kind of blows me away. Day to day, I'm like, how did that happen? You know, and of course, as they say, it is one day at a time, and kind of not paying attention to or going too far into the future to kind of sort that out. But in any case, I have really enjoyed that journey, and certainly have many reflections on that in another platform. And this has been very rewarding, very enriching, and I've now understood so much more about myself. Obviously, being sober led me to understand myself better in terms of my gender. So those two are very much linked in my mind, the integral part of kind of being free of substances to be able to have enough clarity and kind of wherewithal to take the next steps, as I did and continue to do. And so that I'm very thankful for that part of my life. And then another big part in my life that has come back actually since transition is being outdoors. And that's hiking, backpacking, rock climbing, and so forth. And I certainly grew up doing that a lot. And so for me, it's actually reconnecting with something that I used to do pretty much most, or like every part of a summer was, there's a significant portion that was devoted to it. And now I find myself back into that. And it's so enriching, so rewarding, so empowering as well, right? To move one's body through a beautiful landscape and under kind of your own power. And yeah, I just really derive a lot of that, a lot of kind of internal satisfaction and peace from those kinds of activities. And certainly we've got now within the trans, non-binary and two-spirit communities, we now have outdoor representation as well, which is really exciting. And so, yeah, I think that's fantastic. Trips organized where people can either live into their already existing love of the activity, or learn it for the first time with others in safety. And so I think that's really exciting. And so I pretty much, you know, a lot of the summer will be spent outdoors for me, as I, you know, we're in July now, and I've kind of planned out various backpacking trips. They're anywhere from 3 days to longer. And my sister at the end of the summer are planning this epic off-trail trek that's going to be, I think, about 7 days out in the wilderness. So I'm really looking forward to that and excited. And of course, needing to train and get up to speed to be able to do that kind of efforting. But when you go off trail, there's just a particular magic to it, especially if there's nobody else around. And it's, wildlife, is just abundant in terms of bears and, was it elk? No, deer, mountain goats, eagles. And I'm here in the Pacific Northwest, so we've got lots of options for traveling or trekking off trail. And so it's just a real treat and a real honor. So that's like a broad overview of where I'm at in terms of all the things that have happened. And, I'm sure there's so much more to share there, but I'll leave it there for now. And of course, as I post update videos, I'm sure more will layer in to provide that update. But essentially, I really want to convey that I'm really happy. Sometimes I wake up and I'm like, what? I just kind of pinch myself. I'm like, I know how it happened. Of course I was there for every step of the way, but it's just like, I'm just really blown away by how things have evolved for me, and very grateful for transition, in particular, medical aspects, of course, social as well. And, having now completed legal transition as well, that took me a little bit longer than I expected, but here we are. And I think it's important for us to share stories along the way, and it doesn't need to just be positive stories. Obviously, we struggle with things and go through things and whatnot, but I'm really thankful for having made the decision to do what's best for me. And that's sometimes a difficult decision, especially with everyone else around having maybe different ideas or being worried or whatnot. But just staying the course, that this inner sense that I've had from very long ago, kind of attuning to it and responding to it in terms of what it needs. And of course, my transition hasn't always been very linear or hasn't maybe looked like others, but always tuning to the inside, which is, I think, what was missing before. I was tuned to the outside in terms of expectations of others or desires of others. And it's not that they were wrong in those, it's just they didn't know what was right for my life, right? And so I've just, because I've listened to those parts of myself and responded to them, I actually have a lot more bandwidth for compassion towards others, and also, of course, compassion towards myself. And it just makes me that much better of a human being. And it actually allows me to take on things at work that maybe I wouldn't have been able to before, right? Sometimes people struggle with understanding trans, non-binary, and two-spirit folks, and it takes a few iterations to or specific ways of conveying things to them that I have kind of the wherewithal and the presence to be able to do. So I feel really, really thankful and excited, and I know that people listening to this video at various stages of either transitioning or coming to terms or whatnot. And I have, as someone who's now on this journey, well, really for my whole life, but specifically around medical aspects, the last 7 years. See, I've lost track. This is so now. This is me. I don't even remember a time before I wasn't fully me here. And so it's kind of a bit surprising sometimes when I come across, like I was reviewing the videos in the channel, and I hadn't seen them in several years. And I mean, of course that's me, especially the earlier videos, but I don't recognize myself. And of course, I have compassion for all the stages of the journey that I've undertaken, but I may not be able to connect with all of them. And that's okay too, because I'm a forward-looking person. I mean, of course, I know I have a past, but I don't connect with it as much in terms of defining who I am and what I'm doing and what I plan to do. So it's a very interesting pivot because I used to spend a lot of time in the past. In fact, probably a lot of my time. But now I have a very different trajectory, and it's very exciting that, of course, transition was a key part in that. So anyways, I'm probably rambling a little bit now, but I also wanted to say that as part of this kind of reboot of the channel and more regular updates, probably, maybe every other week, if I'm realistic, given everything else that's going on. I also wanted to offer something to the community as well, or trans, non-binary, and two-spirit communities. In particular, I apply this method of inquiry within the work that I do with others as part of my job. And I wanted to offer it to the community or the communities, because I find it was really useful to me, and it might be useful to you, and if not, it's okay. But it's a way to look at stressful thoughts. And so if anybody is interested, you can find me on Instagram. I'm runner13boy. I'll also put it in the description below. But of course, if you're interested in kind of reflecting on the stressful thoughts that you have, and as a way to kind of explore them, understand them deeper, I think especially right now, it's tough going sometimes. There's things happening in the United States. We don't need to list them. We may all know about them. And there's also things happening in terms of like the pandemic and things, and maybe even day-to-day life or questioning, or just, there's a way, there's one of many methods. This is one that really worked for me personally, as well as now within my professional context. And so, yeah, and this would be for free. It's a inquiry process where I ask questions, and then we do some kind of what's called turnarounds, so that you can see what other options are available to you. A lot of those options are empowering ones that kind of are surprises sometimes. So I often like to facilitate that for those who are interested, as a way of discovering the answers that lie within each one of us. We all have answers, but we might not be able to see them, or they might be covered up. And so this is one of many processes that help with that uncovering. And so it's something I want to offer for free. Of course, within a professional context, I charge for it, but I think it's important to give back to trans, non-binary, and two-spirit communities. And this is one of a few ways that I've thought of. And so if you're interested, and please DM me on Instagram, and I'd be happy to set something up. Usually it takes about an hour and a half, just for context, in terms of the questions and the turnarounds and so forth. But just so that you're aware what that all entails. And I'd be happy to provide more details and answer your questions. So I'm really excited to be back and to be engaging this way, and I look forward to your comments and connecting with you in the weeks, months, and years to come. So thank you so much, and talk to you later.